Awesome, I'm glad everybody got here. This is fantastic. Welcome. Gail's gonna come sing for us, so I'm excited about that because you don't hear me sing.
I want to tell you a little bit about my dad's last day, or really his last night, and how it relates to this song. So Harry and Judy, Mom, Jimmy and Wendy had all been with Dad during the day, and everyone had gone home because his condition wasn't changing at all. He was taking a deep breath about every 3 seconds. Nothing was labored about it. He didn't look like he was in any pain. He looked peaceful. And after everyone left, I sat for a couple hours just singing to him. And I was about ready to go because, again, nothing had changed. His condition was just the same. And I had just driven 22 hours to get there. And just as I was thinking of leaving, the head nurse came in, and she came in to check on Dad. She came from home to check on him. And when I told her I was thinking of going home since his condition hadn't changed, she said, "I have this premonition, though, that tonight might be the last night." So I called Jim and let him know that this was probably going to be the last night. And he and Wendy picked Mom up, and they got to the room. And when they came in, Mom sat down at Dad's bedside, and she took his hand. And for the first time in 4 days, he opened his eyes. And we sat and we chatted for a while, and we started to notice a change in his breathing. It was starting to sound more labored. It was more of a gasp instead of just this steady breath. And there was a point too where he started having pauses between his breaths. So he'd breathe in and out 4 or 5 times, and then he'd pause for 10 seconds. And I realized at that point we were reaching the end. And so I went to his bedside, and I wanted him to feel human warmth in his last minutes. So I took his hand, and I started to sing this song, Sunrise, Sunset, because it was a song that every single time I saw him, he wanted me to sing. There were 2 songs he always wanted, and this was one of them. Is this the little girl I carried? Is this the little boy at play? I don't remember growing older. When did they? When did she get to be a beauty? When did he grow to be so tall? Wasn't it yesterday when they were small? Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the days. Seedlings turn overnight to sunflowers, blossoming even as we gaze. Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly flow the years, one season following another, laden with happiness and tears.
I just want to welcome everybody and thank you guys for coming to Uncle George's service, celebration. I think of it as a celebration, a party. I mean, it's a sad time for us, and it's challenging for us as family and as friends. And I'll be honest with you, this is probably the hardest thing I've done since I've entered ministry. It's the greatest honor I've ever had. But a lot of tears have been shed trying to figure out what to say and how to say it. But I really just thank you guys from the bottom of the family's heart. And we're all family, and I get that. But for my Norma especially, and Gail and Stephen and those guys I've been spending time with, it just means so much that you guys all came, and I just can't thank you enough for that. And I hope that you guys just always remember Uncle George for what the awesome guy that he was, for the hero that he was to me growing up. I just can't say enough good things about the man. I ask you that you enjoy your time here, talk to one another. If you haven't met everybody here, you know, it's a great time to take and get to know one another. There's people here that I don't recognize, I'll tell you that. And it's good. A lot of people haven't seen each other in a lot of years. So if you could join with us in singing Amazing Grace, that would be awesome. Morgan's going to come sing it.
No, actually.
Morgan's not? Oh, we changed plans. Last night was Morgan. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Gail's back.
It turns out Morgan won't be able to stop crying through this song, so I will do it. And if you look in your programs, the words are there if you don't know them by heart. Like, I don't know all the verses by heart, and we will do them all. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Twas grace that brought us safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've no less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
On September 16th, 2020, George died surrounded by family after a long battle with Lewy body dementia. Born October 4th, 1937, to Walter and Elida Eliason. Graduated Dental High in 1956, married Norma Ripley in November 1956. A gifted mechanic, George worked at Duluth Auto Think with his brothers Gordy and Jim. Ran a garbage pickup business as the doctor of garbology. That's something new I learned. Okay, I didn't know it had a name. That's an awesome name. Somebody needs to use that. That's sweet. Worked at Barco Loader Sales and retired from North Shore Manufacturing in 2002. George used his mechanical skills to build car number 14, driven by his brothers Gordy and Jim at Proctor, Superior, and Ashton racetracks. He helped his son and nephew carry on his family racing tradition with car 14E, driven by son Alan, and car 4, driven by nephew Todd Eliason. He was a past president of Proctor Speedway. George loved to hunt, hosting opening weekend of deer season at his cabin and preparing a turkey dinner for the hunters. He cooked venison to perfection and made a great venison stew. He was an avid fisherman, taking friends, family, and all the kids out on Lake Superior and Comstock Lake, gladly baiting the hooks for the squarefish ones. Well, I got to put in there for you, I'm sure. The trout and walleye, he could brought everyone back for seconds, and his northern fish cakes were always in demand and devoured by crowds of friends and family. He enjoyed riding snowmobiles, especially his annual trip to Yellowstone with friends, lending a helping hand to anyone having mechanical trouble with their machine. He was a bit of a speed demon as well, tweaking his machine to go as fast as he could and get the most out of in radar runs. And nothing made him prouder than when his teenage granddaughter Chelsea drove for him and brought his finely tuned machine in at first place, which happened often. George was a member of Cotton Community Church and Cotton Seniors Club. Preceded in death by his parents, sister Eleanor, Bowes, brothers Roger and Gordon, survived by his bride of 63 years, Norma, children Jennifer, Rodney Scourge, Gail and David Funk, Stephen and Sherry, Jim and Wendy, Alan Carey, sisters Viola, Border and Margaret Ripley, brothers James, Harry and Judy, John and Nancy, sister-in-law Merle, 12 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, with another due in October, and a dizzying number of nephews and nieces. Sean, you can come sing now, sir?
The piece I'll be singing is a traditional genre of Japanese music by the name of enka, and as I'm probably the only one here who knows what the words mean, I'll sum it up by saying the line is about looking upwards when you walk so that the tears don't fall down, and it's all about keeping yourself together in a time that isn't as easy as it could be. 上を向いて歩こう涙がこぼれないように思い出す夏の日一人ぼっちの夜上を向いて歩こう滲んだ星を数えて思い出す秋の日一人ぼっちの夜幸せは雲の上に幸せは空の上に上を向いて歩こう涙がこぼれないように思い出す冬の日一人ぼっちの夜悲しみは星の裏に悲しみは月の上に上を向いて歩こう涙 chino.
Hi. First, I'm just going to go through a little list of some of the things my dad liked to do. Of course, like building race cars and getting them to go faster. Same with his snowmobiles. He always liked to go a little bit faster on anything he played with. Of course, he liked his hunting. He liked his fishing. He liked spoiling his grandkids or great-grandkids, making fish cakes for a big crew, or just eating a good meal. And last but not least, giving his wife of many years a hard time. See, the same old woman with love to the woman he referred to as the good woman. But I'm going to talk about his addiction, fishing, which I spent many hours doing with him and enjoyed myself a lot. I have a little story I'm going to start with. My dad's in a boat with a little boy, and he's busy trying to cast out the line. And he just gets the line all messed up. He can't get it out. He can't get it to come back in. Dad just says, "Hand me the rod. I'll get it fixed. We'll get your line back out so you can catch some fish." I was a little boy at that time, but I saw that story repeated many times over the years, where he'd bring out the young kids and say, "Come on, let's go." And they had a lot of fun. Dad would say the captain, he was doing his job when the boat was catching fish. He didn't care if he caught any or not. He just enjoyed it when the kids' faces lit up when they had a fish on the line. He also knew that you can't guarantee you're going to catch fish back quickly or at all. So he had a backup plan, and it consisted of a cooler with drinks, sodas and things, a few candy bars, maybe dark chocolate Milky Way or something, and of course some chips. Okay, get my thoughts back. Some days the coolers and things would be almost full when we got back because the fishing was good. Other days they'd be empty. But on the empty days, my dad would just talk more to the kids, say, "Well, here's a spot we're coming up on where I've caught a lot of fish in the past." And he wasn't lying. He fished Lake Comstock so much he fished a lot of places on that lake. You could say I was infected by my dad with the fishing bug. I don't remember the first place he took me out, but I do remember when I first started fishing, Jimmy did a little better than me. He just had a little more patience than I did. But that improves after time. My senior year in high school, I had a decision to make. Should I go fishing for a week with my dad, or should I go to my senior prom with my girlfriend? I chose fishing, and I didn't regret it. Oh, that's her. My dad liked to test people a little bit when it came to fishing. How nuts are you for it? And that would be his early morning fishing. Sean had a tendency to sleep in a little bit. But Todd was like me. He'd get excited. We're going out early fishing. He'd have trouble sleeping too. And so Dad called him another good fishing buddy. Two of my dad's best fishing buddies over the years, though, were Jim Gray and Al Anderson. And Jim Gray met up with him when he was first teaching himself how to fish, about 30 years older. But it was a friendship that lasted the rest of the lifetime of Jim Gray. Al Anderson is just a chance. We moved in next door. He started talking to him. Found out, yeah, he likes to fish a little bit. And then they went out a little bit, found out he was just as nuts, and they just enjoyed themselves. We also have Al to thank for fish cakes, because his mom taught my dad how to do it. The last time I fished with my dad in Lake Superior, we had just done the normal thing, going out shallow and not getting anything. So decided, oh, we'll put down the downriggers. But when we got in about 50 feet of water, we had a problem. The depth finder quit working. My dad just keeps driving the boat out. He tells me, okay, put them down to 140 feet, Steve. Okay, I do it. And then we fish for a couple hours. We pick up a couple trout. We never even hung up fish downriggers because he knew the lake that well. The last time I fished with him at Comstock, he couldn't get into the back of the boat. So I got to be the captain and enjoy watching him catch a few fish. Thank you for listening to me water the boat.
All right, we're gonna open this up to anybody who wants to share a story, a memory, something silly about when he was a kid. I learned that when he was 10 years old, they used to hire him to go work on the ships and get into all the spots that the mechanics could not get into. That's incredible. I don't have any mechanical gifting, so to me that's outrageous. So if you guys want to come up and share a story so we can get it on video, that would be fantastic. Thank you. So you're so shy.
Well, I don't need an introduction. I think everybody knows who I am. I was studying this obituary, and it brought so many memories of, yeah, I've been married to Jennifer for 42 years, and I think I've got 100 years worth of memories, just the little chances I had to be with George. And I started right out on the second paragraph when his birth date, and then when he got married to Norma. Do the math. Only 19 years old. She was not going to get away. Period. His work at Duluth Auto Clinic, brothers Gordy and Jim. I read about the garbage business. Well, I wanted to know, what's it like to be a garbage man? So one time George took me out. This was right after Christmas, when the piles of garbage are up over your head. And he had this, and he was teaching him and Davey Oginen, teach me how to do the kick, where you take the person's garbage, you put it into this big can, you give it a kick, and it bounces up on your hip, and you carry it, and away you go to the truck. Well, my kick ended up with the garbage on the ground, but anyway, I made it back to the truck, but dummy me, I threw the big can of Whole Works right in the back of the truck, squashed it, and that was a butt chewing, because you had to take the big car out of the crusher and fix it anyway. So that was pretty neat. But a lot of my memories really started out with them when I got involved in the race car. And I was so fascinated when George would come home in January or February or go down to the garage, that Dodge pickup, that maroon, Jimmy, or Stephen, you had that truck for a while, that maroon Dodge pickup, short box, and this piles of pipe in the back of this truck. And that car won races. Jim set the record for years in that late model down at Ashland. It was a pile of pipe in the back of a Dodge pickup. He missed his calling as an engineer in my book. Fantastic. And he would talk about steering geometry. And I got to tell you a funny one, because he got me on this all the time. He'd have to do this weld. This weld had to be just perfect. Rod, come over here and hold this. Don't move. And then he'd tack weld it. Don't move. He'd pass gas. Don't move. I'll never forget that as one of. But I'll tell you what, Jim was a phenomenal driver, and I can remember driving to, as soon as I started coming around, I was the guy that had to drive the truck. There was Daly's, that blue Chevy pickup, that crew cab, long box, I had to drive the truck. And George would sit right beside me and make sure I got all the turns to Ashland correct. Every time we went, I knew I could drive to Ashland today with my escalator. Make sure I get all the turns. But he'd have his notes and gear selection gauges in the glove compartment of that truck, and he would study them going down to Ashland to make sure that everything was right for Jim when we got there. That was just so neat. On the way back home after the race was done, of course everything was different then. Then it was Budweiser time on the way home, but that was pretty cool. Hunting. That was so neat. You go up there the night before, everybody is stoked, we're ready to go hunting. You climb into bed to get a few hours, and what does George do? Snore like you wouldn't believe. Nobody could sleep. I can remember one time, I think it was think, we were sleeping, I mean, there was like 12 of us. We were gonna get up and go to town and get a couple hours of sleep and get back for breakfast. I mean, a little slow. But, geez, that was really something. And we had all our spots to hunt and checked on us off, and that was neat. And the meals were just better than any restaurant you could ever go to. And we're talking about the turkey dinner. Oh, Grandma's pumpkin pie. You guys will never forget that, huh? That was awesome. Fishermen, my memories of that one were, of course, up in Canada when we all went up there. Of course, Jim will remember that too. Going up there to Canada and all those portages. We would drag those boats and carry those boats and motors through these narrow little trails, and me being the new guy, what in God's green earth are we doing? And it would open up this little pothole lake, and you get in this lake, and the walleyes would just jump the boat just about. It was unreal. Slept in the tent, pouring down rain, but boy, the fishing was good. Never missed a meal. Everything was always perfect. And you get on the big lake there, it was up in Atikokan, is where I can remember we went. I still have hours and hours of videos of all the trips that we went on together. And it was the worst of the weather. We'd be out there, and of course, George with his salted shiners, he would catch fish, and other people at the landing or in the campground, they weren't catching fish. They were standing, we'd come in, they would be standing on shore. How many this time, George? As we go to the cleaning shack, you know. It was he should have been a guide. Unbelievable. Snowmobile trips. Geez, they were fun in Yellowstone. You had so much fun. And George was our leader. He was the leader of our group. He knew where to go, made sure that everybody was okay. There was a number of times where I could remember working on the old VMAX in the snowbank and seized the engine down or blew the rewind out of it. But if one of us broke, just like I said, he was the first one there to help us get going. It was just the best. His motorhome. Remember driving the motorhome out there one year? Yeah, I'm driving, and he's got quilts and blankets over me, and I'm driving because there's no heat in the motorhome. My gosh, we made her though. We still made it. I just had a great time, and I'll tell you, I think nothing made us a closer family, in my opinion, than when we raced together with my daughter and my son. We went almost every weekend, didn't we, during the winter? George and Norma would come down and stay with us, and we'd have the sled. Sometimes I'd keep the sled at home and make sure it was ready to go. And I tell you, it was just us jumping the truck, and we had a good time. And yes, Chelsea was successful. A lot of trophies, but George had that machine to perfection. And I can remember one time, I wasn't there at this particular race when my son Dusty raced on the big 4-stroke Yamaha. And of course, the biggest speed you get is at the end of your run. That's where he caught a crosswind and flipped. And the machine got wrecked. George got it back together, and they ran it again. It was unreal. Yeah, so, man, there wasn't a guy around, I don't think, that had as full of life as him. And everything's surrounded, if you notice, everything I talked about, he was surrounded by family and friends. All the time. All the time. Even when there was times in the garbage business, he would have his family working with him. You know, I mean, off the job, everything he did was with family and friends. All the time. Unbelievable. So he, God bless you, he led a full life. We talk about making the circle, he made the circle. Thank you.
I want to tell you all a little more serious story. Many of you have known me all my life, know that my basic nature is I have a short temper and a sharp tongue. And I used that once on my cousin Gary. We had this small birch tree in our front yard, and it had 3 little branches. It was just this tiny, lonely looking thing. And one day Gary took the loppers and he cut off one of those 3 branches. And I screamed at him. I told him he was an idiot. How could he do anything so stupid? My basic nature. And Dad called me into the garage and he told me, I want you to think about something. What you just said to Gary is something that could stick with him for the rest of his life. You could be affecting how he thinks about himself in every future interaction that he has. And he said, I'm not going to force you, but I'd really like you to go apologize to Gary. And I did. And from that day on, I tried to think about what was I saying to other people and how did it affect them. And my brothers and sisters will tell you I'm not always successful. But I really, my entire life, since 12 years old, I have tried to model myself after my dad because I admired him so much.
Not everybody here remembers me, but my mother had some problems when I was very young, and I spent a couple years with Uncle George and Aunt Norma when I was getting first 5. And I wish I'd spent more time there because I could have used some of those talks from Uncle George. She shared that story with me a couple years ago, and that's when it really occurred to me. Just how influential those few years were with me. I can't imagine where I'd be without it. Again, my mother wasn't the best example, and I inherited that same sharp tongue. And I thought it was me being a man, young man, and I saw Aunt Norma, and I said, oh crap, I know where it came from. And again, these last few years, I wish that I'd had a couple more years with Uncle George and his influence, but I'm happy for those few years that I had. That's all I can say. I think we all, there's a matriarch of the family, my grandmother, and Uncle George was definitely the patriarch, and I think we all benefit from that.
We shared many amazing meals at the cabin and together as a family, and highest praise from George was, that was not too shabby.
Okay, I had no idea I was going to speak this morning. I had no idea what I was going to say. I still don't have an idea what I'm going to say. But when Kerry talks about his highest praise of that's not too shabby, I mean, I don't remember where this term came from. I remember hearing it at the cabin during hunting season, especially. In Elvin, and my dad, that was their vernacular. It was always not too shabby. And the other thing I think of is we get a lot of names in our life. You know, you're a daughter or a son. Then you become whoever your parents name you. Later on you become, like myself, I was Al Pal. And that's a name that has stuck forever. Later on I became a senior in high school. After that, I became a Marine and a corporal. And the names I got while I was in the military was Eli for a character in Platoon that the people at my unit kind of saw me as. And later on, I got a title that really speaks to everything, and that is husband and father. And I know that this is the highest honor that you can achieve because of my dad. And you know what? That's not too shabby. Not too shabby at all. Thank you.
Like I said earlier, this has been really hard. I've been preparing for this for years. I remember when Uncle George first started getting sick. And he said, hey Dave, can you go to the hospital and visit him? I'm like, sure. What am I going to do when I get there? Can you find out information? Jenny calls me up. Can you find out information? I can try. So I went and said, hi, I'm Dave. I'm his nephew, and the siblings can come here. That was good enough for them, man. They opened up to me, and they just took me in as one of the kids at the hospital and gave me all this information that they probably weren't supposed to give me, but then I could report it back, and we started an online connection to everybody and saying, hey, here's what's going on, and I became that contact point. I spent probably as many weekends at Uncle George's house growing up as I could. I'll be honest with you. I haven't lived there for a while, like my brother Matt said. He got to live there when he was little. I got to live there when I was older. Much older, all of high school. I came back from Seattle. But how do you put into words somebody who has meant so much to you? Like I said, I've been in ministry for 20-some years now. I think this is my 27th year. And this is something that even though you're prepared for it, you're waiting for it to happen, you're watching it come, you're not prepared for it. I have this amazing bunch of stuff written down, I may not get to it. But to me, Uncle George was Superman. That's how I always saw him. Always. He was so strong. I can remember one time, Jimmy and I, and I think some of the neighbor boys were over, we're down in the basement, and I don't know if they remember this, but we're bench pressing. And Jimmy's pretty strong. You know, he's 10 years older than I am, because I'm his twin, minus 10 years. Just saying. We always go, yeah, that's my twin. Just 10 years difference, but love that guy too, I can't be here today. And Uncle George walks downstairs, he came out of the garage for once, because he was in the garage working on something. And walks downstairs and picks up the bar and, you know, work. Probably just bench press this thing, curls it, puts it back in the bar. Well, that's not too shabby, you guys are doing good. That's shabby word. He had his own words for things, it was so crazy. You oftentimes were scratching your head going, did I do good or did I do bad? What does that mean? You know, but he was the strongest person I know. I'm sorry, I'd like to think I was strong, but I'm not strong compared to him. My friend used to say, you know, I have really good hand strength, and he did. The guy was amazingly strong hands. He goes, but I gotta tell you, when your uncle says it's finger tight, you better go get a torch and an impact wrench, because it's not coming back up otherwise. I worked with Uncle George a few times over the years when we needed help out at Barco. And I never got to work in the garage on stuff with them. One time I did, I'll tell you that story, which was huge to me because it's never happened before and never happened again. But I would help him at Barco and he'd say, hey, can you take that bolt back off for me? Sure, where's the wrench? No, it's just finger tight. It's like, dude, you don't understand how strong you are. I tell him all the time, you just don't understand how strong you are, Uncle George. Oh, you wimp. Walk over there and pull off. Told you it's just finger tight. I'm like, sure, for you. I mean, as a kid, my favorite game with Uncle George was the Vice. Did anybody here ever get the Vice treatment? Oh my goodness. I pass it on to my kids and they're just like, you're so weird. I'm like, it's so much fun though. And in the Vice game, they pick you up in a cradle. And you're little and you're laughing, you're having fun. And then you get a little bit bigger. You know, you're thinking, oh, I can get on this, Uncle George. Oh, can you? So he'd start putting his tongue, making that noise he always made. And pretend that he's going to squeeze you to death. And then you'd push with your legs and he'd let you go. As you get older, you realize he could have squished you like a pump. But you felt so big and strong. You're like, yeah, I got Uncle George's grandpa. It's awesome, man. Love that, man. It's awesome. So like I said, I was blessed to grow up with these guys. For us, for Matt and I, it was more like having an extended family. Especially for me, because Jimmy spent oodles and oodles of hours with me. I know he's coming over every spring and every fall for sure. Because that was when we had to cut the semi-load of wood. And me and Billy would be out there with Jimmy, cut it and go down in the ditch and would see who could carry the bigger log back up the hill. And that was always a contest for us. It was a lot of fun. But there's more to his strength. And as I was talking to Gail about this, everybody knew how strong he was. And I said, he's like Superman to me. My whole thing is to tell farewell to Superman. Yeah, he couldn't jump a building and all that kind of stuff that Superman did, but there's so much more to him, and he really was a Superman. As many people have shared today, in fact, my very opening section of my thing today was something that Gail just said with Gary. In Proverbs 22:6 it says, "Start a child off in the direction they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it." This was how my uncle taught. He lived that. He said that. He said, this is what you should do. This is the right thing to do. With me, he might give up a little bit of hope, but that's okay. A lot of times I just got sent back into the house. But he would just take time to tell you, you're doing that wrong. Or say, yeah, here, let me give that a try. But what he really was doing is he's teaching us how to do something. Like I said, sadly, Jimmy couldn't be here today. He wanted to be, but he can't be, and that's sad. But he said, when we asked him if he wanted to talk, he said, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Everything he knows how to do, everything he does, his dad taught him. What a blessing. When you have dads in your life that are part of your life and are encouraging you and teaching you things, like Alan said, to be a husband and a father, that's the greatest, absolute greatest. The influence that a dad has on their kids is amazing. Now that I have my own and they're grown and one's going off to college already, how did that happen? I have no idea. I see it. I see the mistakes I've made. I see the good things I've done. But Uncle George was just always steady. His character was amazing. Like I said, Uncle George was always giving us a little life lesson. And this is one of the stories I remember when I was thinking about this. I remember a time at the cabin, I was maybe 6, maybe 5, 6, I don't know, somewhere there, young anyhow. And, I would hang on every word that Uncle George said, and he used to like to tease my grandma just a little bit. And so he's talking to Grandma Frida one day and he says, his favorite line that he would use on all the time, I heard this end some long times, was, "You must be drinking whiskey because you're getting kind of frisky." I didn't know what that meant. I was a little kid. They laughed. So I said it. Uh-oh. Apparently that was not a good thing for a young child to say. And he stops. And he looks me in the eye. And I was always scary. You learned really good eye contact with Uncle George because that's how he talked to you. And it was one of the few times that he dropped his tone on me. And he said, "You need to watch what side of the bread it's buttered on." What side of your bread is buttered on? I'm like, what does that mean? It was another one of those things I didn't understand. I was a little kid. And so for the next couple of years, I spent time making sure I watched what side that butter my bread on. And if the toast hit the ground, I made sure it didn't land butter side down. If it did, I threw it away because Uncle George said to watch what side was buttered on. Just one of those crazy times that, yeah, the life lesson didn't hit then, but now I look back at it and say, oh yeah, be nice to your grandma because she's taking care of you and raising you. But that was many years later that I realized that. Uncle George always had the weirdest sayings like, want a swig? Where did that come from? There's things I just don't understand. But I mean, that was a huge deal as a kid because it meant I got some of his Coke. I got to take a sip of his Coke. And I got to tell you, growing up, we didn't get pop very much, and that was huge. Uncle George was going to share his Coke with me when we were driving or fishing or sitting in the house. Wow. Another one that I always loved was ready to pull the pin. What did that mean? It took me years to understand that meant we were going someplace, that we were leaving. I just loved his sayings. I mean, it was just insane. I forgot about some of the other stuff that you guys have already shared. It's just like, yeah, I remember that now. Yeah, and not too shabby. That meant it was okay. That meant you did all right. I mean, it was cool. He said, oh, that was good. I mean, I guess you probably would look at him weird, But my wife always said that we were talking today about this, and she said, Uncle George always, from the very first time he met her, greeted her with a hug. No matter what. Always gave her a hug. And that was huge for her. You learn to be ready with Uncle George. And Stephen talked about this a little bit earlier. If Uncle George said we were going fishing at a certain time, he expected you to be ready. Not just getting up, but to be ready. He was leaving at that time. I recall going early morning fishing for the first time at the cabin. In fact, I was stoked. He said, we're getting up at 5:30. Are you sure you want to come? I was little. I was young. Oh yeah. I want to come, absolutely. I think I fell asleep sometime after midnight because I was so excited that Uncle George asked me to go fishing in the morning with him. That's awesome. And he said, Dave, I'm only going to tell you once, though, to get up. And if you don't get up, I'm going without you. So that morning came, and I spent the weekend up at the cabin. And we went fishing. It was great. The next day he goes, you want to go fishing with me again? Absolutely. He told me to get up. I fell back asleep. Got up 15 minutes later. He was gone. Too late. My uncle's a man of his word and integrity. If he told you he was going to do something with you, he was going to do that with you. He didn't tell you he was going to do something, he didn't mean it. Just to get you to go away or to make you feel better. If he told you he was going to do something, it was a guarantee. It did not matter if it was fishing, going to Judy's for breakfast, or picking up his favorite nephew for the weekend. I took liberty with that one. But, you could count on it. Absolutely count on it. He fully committed to his obligations. He spent countless hours in the garage tinkering with race cars. And I call it tinkering with race cars because I never understood what he was doing because I was the youngest. And I like to ask why a lot. So I didn't learn much. He wasn't really patient for why. And I wasn't doing it to be mean or obnoxious or anything like that. I was just really curious. I just wanted to know why. What I really wanted to know is, how can I help? What are you doing? How come you're fixing that part? What is that part? I knew nothing about engines or anything like that. I grew up in a dysfunctional home, and when I did spend time with my own dad, it was to go on sales calls. I learned how to sell people stuff they didn't want. It was awesome. It served me well in school because I could get away with murder. But Uncle George taught me the values of being a man of who you are, your integrity. He was slow to anger, but you could get there if you asked too many why questions. I rarely ever, I can't remember a time where it really totally blew up. Most times you would very calmly, and might add smoothly, say, why don't you go see if Aunt Norma needs some help? That was his favorite line to get me out of the garage. And I was young, it was all good. I was like, sure, I'll go do it, no problem. Or he'd send me on an errand like cutting grass. But every now and then he would have enough and give me the look. He had this unique way of looking at you sideways. And his mouth would make this sneer, smile, gritted teeth thing. And I don't know if everybody got that look, but I did. And oh man, you didn't have to tell me that I was in trouble. I'm pretty sure I heard somebody call me in the next county, and I had to go at that time. It only happened a few times, but sometimes I get to be annoying. I understand that. I was one of those little active kids that didn't stop talking. That's probably why I do what I do now. As much as I was scared of his physical presence at times, because there was no doubt that he could squash me like a bug, I was far more scared of ever losing his respect and love and being seen as a disappointment. Physical pain heals pretty quickly. Like Gail said, our words don't. And if Uncle George would have given up hope in me, I don't think I'd be where I am today. Uncle George was my Superman, and when his Parkinson's started to take hold, he was not done teaching me life lessons yet. This will be the hardest part, I promise you that. Because it wasn't what I tried to write last night. My family had gone up to the cabin to visit. I was sitting with him watching racing. He loved racing. During one of the breaks, he said to me, David, let me tell you something important. I thought, well, that's weird. You can call me David John, you call me David. I was always David John. I've always been David John to everybody in this family. He said, you know, the doctors want me to start using a walker to get around. At the time, I was using a couple of canes. He said, Dave, I'm not going to do it. You know why? I said, because you don't feel like it. See if I can answer me. He said, no. He said, because every time I quit doing something for myself and use the easier way the doctor wants me to do it, I lose that ability and I never get it back. He killed me. This is my Superman. I can use the walker, it would be easier. I could quit going upstairs and it would be easier. But I've learned that once you quit doing something and take the easier way out, you can never get back what you've lost. Joshua 1:19 says, be strong and courageous, do not be frightened or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. I think this final teaching he shared with me is the greatest blessing of all the times I have spent with him. I feel there's a lot of relevance to it that pertains to the time we are taking to celebrate his life. Don't let the death of a loved one steal your joy. For if you do not have love, hope, and joy, we will only have bitterness, anger, and grief. It is up to each one of us to choose how we react to our loss. I believe Uncle George wanted us to choose to keep loving, to keep pushing ahead, making new memories with those around us, to spend time together with friends and family and laugh. Once we quit loving, it's hard, if not impossible, to love again. Like Uncle George said to me that afternoon, if we quit using it, it will be lost. Never stop loving so that the memories of loved ones and friends will never die. Farewell, Superman, I will miss you.
The nurse came into Dad's room to take his temperature. When he died, he was having a fever. And he wanted to give Dad some Tylenol in an enema form. But I'd seen them do that earlier, and it was obvious that he got great pain from that. They had actually given him some methadone after doing that. So I asked him to check his chart and see if he really needed another one, because I felt we were very close to the end of Dad's life, and I didn't want one of the last things in his life to be pain. And Jim and I told Dad repeatedly, "We love you, Dad. We love you, Dad." And I started this song, and before I got to the amen, Dad closed his eyes and he breathed out for the last time. So we had the blessing, and I especially had the blessing of sitting at his bedside, holding his hand, and watching him peacefully pass out of this world. And this was his favorite song that I sing. I could never come home and not sing this song for him. For the 5 years that I visited him in Golden Oaks, I could never go without singing this to him. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Thank you guys so much for coming and sharing this time with us. It's awesome to see a lot of you guys. I haven't seen a lot of you guys in like 20, 30 years probably. Don't let time go by so fast without saying hi to one another. Don't forget about extended family. We get so focused on our own families that we forget that we have cousins and aunts and uncles. When our patriarchs and matriarchs die, we separate our families, and that's wrong. Even if you don't get together on the holidays, find some time to get together during the year. We lost a great leader today. Well, not today, but that we celebrate today. He was Superman. There's lunch to be served after this. We invite you guys all to stay. After lunch, there will be a bonfire. If you just want to stay and visit, because like I said, as a family, we don't get a chance to get together nearly enough. There's so much tragedy in the world. Take this opportunity to spend time with each other. Don't rush. The house is open. There'll be a big bonfire. You can hang out in the warmth of the tent, whatever you need. Hang out in the house if you're more comfortable. You guys are welcome to stay as long as you want. We're grateful to be able to do this. It's an honor. It's a privilege. That's why we built our house where we built it, just to build this kind of stuff. We had a vision to use this field someday for something that I just never imagined that the first time we use this field would be for this. But what a blessing that it's here. Let's pray. Hey, Father God, I just invite your Holy Spirit now, Lord God, to minister to each person's heart here, Lord, today. Help us to be strong. Help us to go forward in love and joy, Lord God, and to not regret. Lord, I pray, God, that you would bless the catering staff as they get prepared for us. I thank you, God, for the ability to have them here. I thank you, God, for everybody who organized things today, Lord God, and make it go so smoothly. For those who shared memories and stories and examples of the great man that Uncle George was. I thank you, Lord God, that family is together, loving for one another, Lord God. And I pray, Lord, that your wisdom would be with us, your joy, your peace, and that you bless this food. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you again. I think they're still setting up. When they're ready, we'll just pull that tent open and you guys will be able to get food. Thank you.